I never thought I'd find love in a choir of all places. But then again, I never thought I'd be a 38-year-old divorcee running a boutique perfume shop in Reno either. Life's funny like that. My name's Madison Price, and I've been wrestling with depression since my marriage fell apart 2 years ago. Some days just getting out of bed feels like climbing Everest. My little shop, Sense and Sensibility, is my refuge, a place where I can lose myself in the delicate art of perfumery. But lately, even that hasn't been enough. My therapist, bless her heart, suggested I join a support group and a local choir. "Surround yourself with people, Madison," she said. "You need connection." I wanted to tell her where she could shove her connection, but instead I just nodded. So there I was, on a crisp autumn evening, standing outside the community center like an awkward teenager at her first school dance. My blonde hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and I'd thrown on my favorite green sweater, the one that matched my eyes, as if looking put together would somehow make me feel less broken inside. The moment I stepped into the room, a wave of voices washed over me. Some were tentative, others booming with confidence. But one voice cut through them all, a haunting soprano that sent shivers down my spine. I followed the sound with my eyes, and there she was. Catherine Gonzalez. I didn't know her name then, of course. All I knew was that she was the most captivating woman I'd ever seen. Dark brown hair cascaded over her shoulders, and her blue eyes sparkled as she hit a particularly high note. Our eyes met for a brief moment, and I felt a jolt of something. Recognition, attraction. I quickly looked away, my cheeks burning. The choir director, a bubbly woman named Brooke, ushered us into our sections. I found myself standing next to Catherine, close enough to catch a whiff of her perfume. It was light and floral, with a hint of something deeper underneath. Jasmine and sandalwood, maybe. My perfumer's nose was intrigued. As we warmed up, I snuck glances at Catherine. There was something about her that seemed familiar, not in a we've met before way, but in a I recognize your soul kind of way. Gosh, when did I get so sappy? The rehearsal flew by, and before I knew it, Brooke was wrapping things up. As everyone started to file out, Catherine turned to me with a smile that made my heart skip a beat. "You have a lovely voice," she said. I stammered out a thank you, mentally kicking myself for sounding like an idiot. But Catherine didn't seem to notice. She just kept smiling. "I'm Catherine," she said, holding out her hand. "Madison," I replied, taking it. Her skin was soft, her grip firm. We chatted for a few minutes about the music and how long we'd each been in Reno. It turned out she was new in town, having moved here to start a fragrance brand. "No way," I laughed. "I own a perfume shop downtown." Her eyes lit up. "Really? That's amazing. We'll have to talk shop sometime." As we walked out into the cool night air, I felt lighter than I had in months. We said our goodbyes, and I watched her walk away, her silhouette illuminated by the streetlights. That night, for the first time in ages, I didn't need my sleeping pills. I drifted off with the echo of Catherine's voice in my ears and the lingering scent of jasmine and sandalwood in my dreams. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would change everything. A journey of love, self-discovery, and the perfect blend of two hearts finding their harmony. The next few weeks were a blur of choir practices, support group meetings, and stolen glances across crowded rooms. Catherine and I kept gravitating towards each other, like two perfume notes that just naturally blend. One evening after choir, as I was packing up my sheet music, Catherine approached me with that smile that never failed to make my heart race. "Hey Madison," she said, tucking a strand of her chestnut hair behind her ear. "I was wondering if you'd like to grab a coffee? I'd love to pick your brain about vintage perfumes." I tried to play it cool, but inside, I was doing cartwheels. "Sure, I'd like that." We ended up at a cozy little cafe downtown, the kind with mismatched furniture and the permanent aroma of freshly ground beans. As we settled into a worn leather couch, our knees almost touching, Catherine leaned in conspiratorially. "Can I tell you a secret?" she asked, her blue eyes twinkling. "I've been dying to talk to you about perfume since that first day. Your shop's reputation precedes you." I felt a blush creep up my neck. "Oh? And what does my reputation say?" "That you're a wizard with sense. That you can capture memories in a bottle." I laughed, both flattered and embarrassed. "I don't know about wizard, but I do all right." We dove into a passionate discussion about classic fragrances, our favorite notes, and the art of perfumery. Catherine's knowledge impressed me. She wasn't just some entrepreneur jumping on a trend. She really knew her stuff. As the night wore on and the cafe emptied around us, our conversation drifted to more personal topics. I found myself opening up about my divorce, my struggle with depression. To my surprise, Catherine listened without judgment, her eyes full of compassion. "I get it," she said softly. "I've been on my own journey too." She hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath. "I'm transgender," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been transitioning for the past few years. It's been challenging." I reached out and squeezed her hand without thinking. "Thank you for trusting me with that," I said. The relief in her eyes was palpable. We sat there for a moment, hands linked, a silent understanding passing between us. From that night on, Catherine and I were inseparable. We'd meet for coffee after support group meetings, swap perfume samples, and spend hours talking about everything and nothing. I found myself looking forward to choir practice with an enthusiasm I hadn't felt in years. One Saturday afternoon, Catherine came to visit my shop. The bell above the door chimed as she entered, and I felt my pulse quicken at the sight of her. She was wearing a flowy sundress that brought out the blue in her eyes, and I had to remind myself to breathe. "This place is amazing," she said, looking around in awe. The walls were lined with shelves of colorful bottles, and the air was thick with a symphony of scents. I gave her the grand tour, showing her my workstation where I mixed custom fragrances. Catherine was like a kid in a candy store, sniffing everything and peppering me with questions. "Can we try something?" she asked excitedly. "I've always wanted to create my own scent." I grinned. "Of course. That's what I do best." We spent the next few hours experimenting with different combinations. I showed her how to layer scents, how to balance top notes with base notes. As we worked, I couldn't help but notice how close we were standing, how our hands would brush as we reached for the same bottle. Finally, we created something truly special. It was a complex blend of jasmine and sandalwood, the scent I'd first noticed on her, with hints of vanilla and a surprising twist of citrus. "It's perfect," Catherine breathed, inhaling deeply from the test strip. "It smells like possibility." Our eyes met, and for a moment the air between us crackled with electricity. I found myself leaning in, drawn by some invisible force. Catherine's lips parted slightly, and I could feel her breath on my cheek. Just then, the shop door burst open, shattering the moment. A flustered-looking woman rushed in, babbling about needing a last-minute gift for her mother-in-law. Catherine and I jumped apart, both of us blushing furiously. As I turned to help the customer, I caught Catherine's eye. The look we shared was full of promise and unspoken desires. That night, as I locked up the shop, I couldn't stop thinking about what might have happened if we hadn't been interrupted. The almost kiss played on repeat in my mind, leaving me both exhilarated and terrified. I knew I was falling for Catherine, falling hard. But was I ready for this? Was she? And what would it mean for both of us, two women still healing from our own battles, to embark on this journey together? As I walked home under the star-studded Reno sky, I realized that for the first time in years, I was excited about the future. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for certain: my life would never smell the same again. The weeks following our almost kiss were a delicious torture. Catherine and I fell into a routine of lingering glances, casual touches that set my skin on fire, and conversations that danced around what we both really wanted to say. It was maddening and thrilling all at once. One evening, as I was closing up shop, the bell chimed. I looked up to see Catherine standing there, silhouetted against the fading light. She was a vision in a simple black dress, her hair loose around her shoulders. "I hope I'm not interrupting," she said, her voice low and melodious. I shook my head, unable to find my voice for a moment. "Never," I finally managed. "What brings you by?" She held up a small, elegant bottle. "I wanted your opinion on something. It's a sample from my new line." I felt a surge of pride. Catherine had been working tirelessly on launching her own fragrance brand, and I'd been her unofficial sounding board throughout the process. "Of course," I said, gesturing her over to my workstation. "Let's see what you've got." As she approached, I caught a whiff of her perfume. The one we'd created together. My heart skipped a beat at the memory. Catherine handed me the bottle, our fingers brushing in the exchange. I tried to ignore the jolt of electricity that shot through me at her touch. Focusing on the task at hand, I carefully opened the bottle and wafted the scent towards my nose. The fragrance that greeted me was complex and intriguing. Notes of bergamot and lavender danced with deeper tones of patchouli and amber. But there was something else, something I couldn't quite place. "There's a note in here I can't identify," I said, frowning slightly. "It's familiar, but—" Catherine smiled, a mischievous glint in her eye. "That's my secret ingredient. I was inspired by something you said about capturing memories in scent." I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Oh? And what memory were you trying to capture?" She stepped closer, her blue eyes intense. "The night we first met, the community center, the sound of the choir, the way you looked in that green sweater." My breath caught in my throat. "Catherine, I can't stop thinking about you, Madison," she said softly. "About us. About what almost happened that day in your shop." I set the bottle down carefully, my hands trembling slightly. "I can't stop thinking about it either," I admitted. We stood there for a moment, the air thick with tension and unspoken desires. Then, slowly, deliberately, I reached out and took her hand. Her skin was soft, warm against mine. "I've never felt this way about a woman before," I whispered. It's a little scary." Catherine squeezed my hand gently. "I know, but doesn't it also feel right?" I nodded, unable to deny the truth of her words. It did feel right, in a way nothing had in years. Emboldened, I decided to take a risk. I'd been working on something special, a fragrance inspired by Catherine. "I have something for you too," I said, reaching for a small vial on my workbench. I handed it to her, our fingers lingering in the exchange. "I call it Siren Song," I explained as she opened it, "because that's what your voice was to me that first night, a call I couldn't resist." Catherine inhaled deeply, her eyes closing as she took in the scent. When she opened them again, they were shining with emotion. "Madison, it's beautiful," she breathed. "It smells like coming home." In that moment, something shifted between us. The tension that had been building for weeks finally crested. Catherine set down the vial and stepped closer, her hand coming up to cup my cheek. I leaned into her touch, my heart pounding so hard I was sure she could hear it. Slowly, giving me every chance to pull away, Catherine leaned in. Our lips met in a soft, tentative kiss. It was gentle at first, a question more than a demand. But as I responded, wrapping my arms around her waist and pulling her closer, the kiss deepened. She tasted like hope and possibility, like the promise of new beginnings. When we finally parted, both a little breathless, I rested my forehead against hers. "Wow," I murmured. Catherine laughed softly. "Yeah, wow." We spent the rest of the evening talking, kissing, and exploring this new facet of our relationship. As the night wore on, I found myself opening up about things I'd never shared with anyone, my fears, my dreams, the depth of my struggle with depression. Catherine listened with compassion, sharing her own journey of self-discovery and transition. We talked about the challenges we'd face, being two women in love in a world that wasn't always accepting. "It won't be easy," Catherine said, her fingers intertwined with mine, "but I think you're worth fighting for." I felt a warmth bloom in my chest at her words. "So are you," I replied, leaning in for another kiss. As we left the shop that night, walking hand in hand under the twinkling Reno stars, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in years. The future was uncertain, full of potential obstacles. But for the first time in a long time, I was excited to face it. With Catherine by my side, I felt like I could conquer anything. Our love story was just beginning, as complex and beautiful as the fragrances we created, and I couldn't wait to see how it would unfold, one note at a time. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of stolen kisses, late-night phone calls, and the giddy excitement of new love. Catherine and I fell into a rhythm, our lives intertwining like the complex notes of a well-crafted perfume. But as with any fragrance, there were deeper, more challenging notes beneath the surface. One sunny afternoon, as I was restocking shelves in my shop, the bell chimed. I turned, expecting to see Catherine, but instead found myself face to face with a stern-looking man in an expensive suit. Madison Price? He asked, his voice clipped and businesslike. I nodded, a sense of unease creeping over me. Can I help you? He extended his hand. James Walsh, I'm Catherine's business partner. My heart sank. I'd heard about James from Catherine. He was the money behind her new fragrance line, but also notoriously conservative. I shook his hand, trying to keep my expression neutral. What can I do for you, Mr. Walsh? He glanced around the shop, his lip curling slightly. I'll be blunt, Miss Price. I'm here to discuss your relationship with Catherine. I felt my cheeks flush, anger and embarrassment warring within me. I'm not sure that's any of your business. Oh, but it is, he said, his tone icy. You see, our brand is about to launch, and we can't afford any controversies. I clenched my fists, struggling to keep my voice level. Are you suggesting that my relationship with Catherine is a controversy? He shrugged, the gesture dismissive. The fragrance market is conservative. 2 women in a relationship? It could tank the whole brand before it even launches. That's ridiculous, I snapped, and discriminatory. It's business, he countered, and I'm here to give you a friendly warning. Step back, or I'll be forced to withdraw my funding from Catherine's project. With that, he turned and left, the bell jangling discordantly in his wake. I stood there, shaking with anger and fear. How could I tell Catherine about this? Would she choose her dream over our relationship? That evening, I met Catherine at our favorite cafe. As soon as she saw my face, she knew something was wrong. Maddie, what is it? She asked, reaching for my hand across the table. I took a deep breath and told her about James's visit. As I spoke, I watched the color drain from her face, her blue eyes widening in dismay. Oh gosh, she whispered when I finished. I'm so sorry, Madison. I had no idea he would do something like this. What are we going to do? I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. Catherine squeezed my hand. We'll figure it out. I won't let him bully us. But I could see the worry in her eyes, the way her shoulders slumped under the weight of this new challenge. We spent the rest of the evening strategizing, trying to find a way out of this mess, but every solution seemed to lead to more problems. As the days passed, the strain began to show. Catherine was stressed, torn between her dream and our relationship. I found myself slipping back into old patterns, the black cloud of depression hovering at the edges of my consciousness. One rainy evening, after a particularly tense choir practice where we'd barely spoken, I decided to skip the support group meeting. Instead, I wandered the streets of Reno, letting the cool drizzle soak through my clothes. I ended up outside the community center just as the meeting was letting out. Catherine emerged, her eyes scanning the parking lot. When she saw me standing there, soaked to the skin, her face crumpled. Madison, she called, rushing over. What are you doing out here? You're soaked. I looked at her, feeling lost and scared. I don't know, I admitted. I couldn't face it tonight. Any of it. Understanding dawned in her eyes. Without a word, she pulled me into her arms, not caring about the rain or who might see us. I'm here, she whispered fiercely. We're in this together, okay? No matter what. And then, right there in the rain outside the community center, Catherine kissed me. It wasn't like our previous kisses, soft, exploratory. This was passionate, almost desperate. A declaration and a promise all at once. When we finally broke apart, both of us breathless and dripping, I felt something shift inside me. The fog of depression that had been creeping in receded, replaced by a fierce determination. Okay, I said, nodding. Together. We walked hand in hand to my car, ignoring the curious glances from the other support group members. As we drove back to my place, Catherine turned to me. I have an idea, she said, a spark of excitement in her voice. What if we turn this whole thing on its head? Make our relationship part of the brand story? I glanced at her, intrigued. What do you mean? A love story captured in scent. 2 women, each with their own journey, coming together to create something beautiful. It's authentic, it's romantic, and it's us. The more she talked, the more excited I became. By the time we reached my apartment, we were both buzzing with energy, the earlier gloom forgotten. We stayed up late into the night, brainstorming and planning. As the first light of dawn crept through the windows, We had the beginnings of a campaign that could change everything. Looking at Catherine, her face alight with passion and determination, I felt a surge of love so strong it almost overwhelmed me. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew we could face them together. As we finally fell into bed, exhausted but hopeful, Catherine pulled me close. "Thank you," she murmured against my hair. "For what?" I asked, already half asleep. "For being you. For not giving up on us." I smiled, snuggling closer. "Never," I promised. As I drifted off to sleep, I realized that the ups and downs, the challenges and triumphs, this was what real love smelled like, and it was the most intoxicating scent of all. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Catherine and I threw ourselves into our plan, determined to turn James's threat into an opportunity. We decided to create a limited edition fragrance that would tell our story, two women finding love and acceptance in an unexpected place. I'd never seen Catherine so energized. She was a force of nature, effortlessly charming potential investors and partners with her passion and vision. I found myself falling even deeper in love with her, if that was possible. One sunny Saturday, we decided to host a small, intimate workshop for some influential beauty bloggers and LGBTQ advocates. The idea was to give them a behind-the-scenes look at our creative process and the story behind our new fragrance. As I set up my workstation in the back room of my shop, I felt a familiar flutter of nerves. Catherine must have noticed because she came up behind me and wrapped her arms around my waist. "You've got this," she murmured, pressing a soft kiss to my neck. I leaned back into her embrace, drawing strength from her presence. "We've got this," I corrected her. The workshop was a hit. Catherine and I worked in perfect harmony, guiding our guests through the process of creating their own unique scents. As we explained the significance of each note we'd chosen for our fragrance, I could see the emotion on people's faces. "The top note is citrus," I explained, passing around a testing strip. "It represents the brightness and excitement of new beginnings." Catherine picked up seamlessly where I left off. "The heart is a blend of jasmine and rose, symbolizing the blossoming of love and acceptance." "And the base," I continued, "is a warm, comforting mix of sandalwood and vanilla. It's the foundation of trust and companionship that we've built." As our guests experimented with different combinations, the room filled with laughter and excited chatter. I caught Catherine's eye across the room, and the look we shared was full of pride and love. After the workshop, as we were cleaning up, Catherine pulled me into a tight hug. "We did it," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I pulled back slightly, cupping her face in my hands. "We're just getting started," I said, before leaning in for a kiss. That kiss quickly deepened, months of tension and anticipation finally boiling over. Before I knew it, we were stumbling towards the small office in the back of the shop, hands roaming, breath coming in short gasps. What followed was a blur of sensation, the softness of Catherine's skin, the taste of her lips, the sound of her breathless moans. We came together in a symphony of passion and tenderness, our bodies speaking a language that words couldn't capture. Afterward, as we lay tangled together on the small office couch, I traced lazy patterns on Catherine's bare shoulder. "That was incredible," she finished for me, pressing a soft kiss to my collarbone. We stayed like that for a while, basking in the afterglow and the scent of our mingled perfumes. It felt like a perfect moment, one I wished I could bottle and keep forever. But reality had a way of intruding, even on the most perfect moments. My phone buzzed insistently, breaking the spell. It was a text from Brooke, our choir director, reminding us about the upcoming spring concert. "Shit," I muttered. "I completely forgot about the concert." Catherine propped herself up on one elbow, her brow furrowed. "What concert?" "The choir's spring performance. It's in 2 weeks, and we're supposed to do a duet." A slow smile spread across Catherine's face. "A duet, huh? I like the sound of that." I couldn't help but laugh. "You would, but we haven't practiced at all. We've been so caught up in everything else." Catherine silenced me with a quick kiss. "Then we'll practice. Starting now." And so we did. Over the next 2 weeks, in between finalizing our fragrance and preparing for the product launch, we carved out time to rehearse. Our voices blended beautifully, the harmony a reflection of the connection we'd forged. The night of the concert arrived faster than I could believe. As we stood backstage waiting for our cue, I felt a familiar rush of nerves. Catherine must have sensed it, because she reached out and took my hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "Ready?" she whispered. I took a deep breath, drawing strength from her touch. "Ready." As we stepped out onto the stage, the spotlight hit us, momentarily blinding. But then I looked at Catherine, saw the love and confidence shining in her eyes, and everything else faded away. We began to sing, our voices rising and falling in perfect harmony. The song was about love and acceptance, about finding your true self in the arms of another. As we sang, I felt every word deep in my soul. When the final note faded away, there was a moment of silence. Then the audience erupted in applause. I barely heard it though. All I could focus on was Catherine, the way she was looking at me like I was the only person in the world. As we made our way off stage, hand in hand, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, whether from James or society or our own fears, we would face them together. Because what we had was real and beautiful and worth fighting for. That night, as we celebrated with our friends from the choir and the support group, I realized something. The fragrance we'd created wasn't just a product. It was a testament to our journey, to the love we'd found in each other, and like any great perfume, it would only get better with time. The high from our successful concert and the growing buzz around our fragrance line carried Catherine and me through the next few weeks. We were riding a wave of optimism, feeling like we could conquer anything life threw our way. But as any perfumer knows, even the sweetest scents have their bitter notes. It started with a phone call. I was in the middle of a consultation with a bride-to-be when my cell buzzed. Seeing it was my ex-husband, I excused myself and stepped into the back room. "Hello?" I answered, a knot forming in my stomach. "Madison," came the familiar voice, tinged with an edge I couldn't quite place. "We need to talk." My ex and I had managed to maintain a civil, if distant, relationship since our divorce, but something in his tone set me on edge. "What's going on, Tom?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. There was a pause then. "I saw you, at the concert, with her." My blood ran cold. Tom had never been outright homophobic, but he'd always been traditional in his views. I'd never told him about my relationship with Catherine, partly because I wasn't sure how to explain something I was still figuring out myself. "Tom? He cut me off. "Save it, Madison. I don't care who you sleep with. But have you thought about what this could do to your business? To your reputation?" I felt a surge of anger. "My relationship with Catherine is none of your business," I snapped, "and it has nothing to do with my work." He laughed, a harsh sound that made me flinch. "Wake up, Madison. You live in a small town, people talk, and not everyone is as open-minded as you seem to think." Before I could respond, he hung up. I stood there, phone in hand, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. Just when things were going so well, it felt like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. I must have looked as shaken as I felt, because when I returned to the bride-to-be, she took one look at me and asked if I was okay. I plastered on a fake smile and assured her I was fine, but my mind was racing. That evening, I told Catherine about Tom's call. We were curled up on my couch, a half-empty bottle of wine between us. As I recounted the conversation, I could see the worry lines deepen on her forehead. "Maybe he's right," she said softly when I finished. "Maybe we've been naive, thinking everyone would be as accepting as our friends." I sat up, taking her hands in mine. "Hey, no, we're not going to let Tom or anyone else make us doubt what we have." Catherine smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "It's not just Tom, though. I got some unsettling emails today from some of the more conservative players in the fragrance industry." My heart sank. "What kind of emails?" She sighed, running a hand through her hair. "Let's just say they made it clear that our lifestyle choice wasn't going to fly in their circles." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of these new challenges settling over us. Then, almost in unison, we reached for our wine glasses. "To facing the haters," I said, raising my glass in a mock toast. Catherine clinked her glass against mine. "Together," she added. The next few days were tense. Every time the bell over my shop door rang, I half expected to see an angry mob. Catherine reported more pushback from potential distributors, some of whom had seemed enthusiastic about our line before learning about our relationship. But for every negative reaction, there seemed to be a positive one to balance it out. Brooke, our choir director, started wearing our fragrance and raving about it to anyone who would listen. The LGBTQ community in Reno rallied around us, organizing a small protest outside a store that had refused to carry our line. One afternoon, as I was locking up the shop, I saw a familiar figure approaching. It was Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the facilitator from our support group. She'd been a constant source of encouragement throughout my journey. "Madison," she called, waving as she crossed the street. "Got a minute?" I nodded, unlocking the door to let us both in. "Everything okay?" I asked, noting the serious look on her face. She smiled, the expression warming her eyes. "More than okay. I wanted to let you know that the group is behind you and Catherine 100%. I felt a lump form in my throat. "Thank you," I managed. "That means a lot." Dr. Mitchell reached out, squeezing my arm gently. "You two are an inspiration, you know. The way you've faced your challenges, how you've turned your love into something beautiful and tangible. It's given hope to a lot of people in the group." I blinked back tears, overwhelmed by her words. "We're just trying to be true to ourselves," I said. "And that's exactly why you're inspiring," she replied. "Keep being yourselves, the rest will follow." As she left, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Yes, we were facing opposition. Yes, there were people who didn't understand or accept our love, but we also had a community behind us, people who saw the beauty in our story. That night, I called Catherine. "We need to make a statement," I said as soon as she picked up. "What kind of statement?" she asked, curiosity evident in her voice. I grinned, even though she couldn't see me. "The kind that smells amazing and refuses to be ignored." We stayed up late into the night, brainstorming ideas for a new fragrance. This one would be bold, unapologetic, a celebration of love in all its forms. By the time we hung up, we had the beginnings of something spectacular. As I fell into bed, exhausted but exhilarated, I realized something. The challenges we were facing weren't obstacles to be overcome. They were part of our story, notes in the complex fragrance of our life together. And like any master perfumer, we would use every note, bitter and sweet, to create something unforgettable. The weeks leading up to the choir's spring concert were a whirlwind of activity. Between finalizing our new fragrance line, preparing for our duet, and navigating the choppy waters of public opinion, Catherine and I barely had a moment to breathe. But somehow, in the midst of all the chaos, we found our rhythm. The night of the concert arrived with a mix of excitement and nerves. As we stood backstage, I could feel the energy buzzing through the air. Catherine looked stunning in a deep blue dress that brought out the color of her eyes, her brown hair cascading over her shoulders in soft waves. "You ready for this?" I whispered, reaching out to squeeze her hand. She turned to me, a mix of determination and vulnerability in her eyes. "As long as you're by my side, I'm ready for anything." Brooke, our ever-enthusiastic choir director, poked her head around the curtain. "You're on in 5, ladies," she chirped, giving us a thumbs up before disappearing again. As we waited for our cue, I thought about how far we'd come. From that first night in the community center to this moment, standing hand in hand, ready to share our love with the world through song. It felt like a lifetime had passed, and yet, in many ways, our journey was just beginning. The opening chords of our song filtered through the speakers, and we stepped out onto the stage. The lights were blinding at first, but as my eyes adjusted, I could make out the sea of faces in the audience. Some familiar, some strangers, all waiting to hear what we had to say, or sing rather. We began our duet, our voices blending in perfect harmony. The song was about finding love in unexpected places, about the courage it takes to be true to yourself. As we sang, I felt every word resonate deep in my soul. "In the depths of winter, I found within me an invincible summer," Catherine sang, her voice clear and strong. "And the scent of hope bloomed like a flower in the snow," I responded, our voices joining for the chorus. As we moved through the song, I could feel the energy in the room shift. The audience leaned in, captivated. In that moment, it didn't matter what anyone thought about our relationship. All that mattered was the music, the message, and the love we were sharing. As the final notes faded away, there was a moment of profound silence. Then, like a dam breaking, the applause erupted. It wasn't just polite clapping, it was a roar of approval, of acceptance, of celebration. We took our bows, hands clasped tightly together, tears shining in both our eyes. As we made our way off stage, we were engulfed in a group hug by the rest of the choir. Brooke was there too, beaming with pride. "That was incredible," she gushed. "You two stole the show!" The rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations and well wishes. Even a few of the more conservative members of the community approached us, their previous reservations seemingly melted away by the power of our performance. As we were packing up to leave, a young woman approached us timidly. She couldn't have been more than 18 or 19. "I just wanted to say thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Your song, it gave me the courage to come out to my parents tonight." Catherine and I exchanged a glance, both of us overwhelmed by the impact our music had made. "We're so proud of you," Catherine said, pulling the girl into a gentle hug. As we drove home that night, the car filled with a comfortable silence, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. We had faced our fears, stood up to the naysayers, and come out stronger on the other side. "You know," Catherine said, breaking the silence, "I've been thinking about our business." I glanced over at her, curiosity piqued. "Oh, what about it?" She took a deep breath. "What if we merged our companies, your perfume shop, my brand? We could create something really special together." The idea hit me like a bolt of lightning. It was perfect, a natural progression of our personal and professional lives intertwining. "Catherine, that's brilliant." We spent the rest of the drive home excitedly planning our future, the possibilities seeming endless. By the time we reached my apartment, we were both buzzing with energy. As soon as we were through the door, Catherine pulled me into a passionate kiss. I responded eagerly, all the emotion and adrenaline from the evening pouring into that embrace. We made love that night with a newfound intensity, our bodies moving together in perfect harmony, just like our voices had on stage. It was a celebration of all we'd overcome and all that lay ahead of us. Afterward, as we lay tangled in the sheets, I traced lazy patterns on Catherine's bare shoulder. "I love you," I whispered, the words feeling inadequate to express the depth of my feelings. She propped herself up on one elbow, her blue eyes serious as they met mine. "I love you too, Madison, more than I ever thought possible." We fell asleep in each other's arms, the scent of our mingled perfumes surrounding us like a protective cocoon. As I drifted off, I thought about how far we'd come and how exciting the road ahead looked. The next morning, we woke to a flurry of notifications on our phones. Our performance had gone viral overnight, with clips of our duet spreading across social media like wildfire. The comments were overwhelmingly positive, with people from all over the world sharing their own stories of love and acceptance. As we sat at my kitchen table, scrolling through the messages with a mixture of awe and humility, I realized something. Our story, the story of two women finding love and acceptance in a small town, of turning that love into art and business, had resonated with people in a way we never could have imagined. "You know what this means, don't you?" Catherine said, a mischievous glint in her eye. I raised an eyebrow. "What?" She grinned. "We're going to need a bigger bottle for our next fragrance." I laughed, leaning in to kiss her. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew we'd face them together, creating our own unique blend of love, music, and scent. And that was a fragrance I couldn't wait to share with the world. The months following our viral performance were a whirlwind of activity. Catherine and I threw ourselves into merging our businesses, creating a brand that was uniquely ours. We called it Harmony in Scent, a nod to both our musical backgrounds and our journey together. Our flagship store opened in downtown Reno, a beautiful space that combined my boutique charm with Catherine's sleek branding. The grand opening was a spectacle, with a line stretching around the block. As I cut the ribbon, Catherine by my side, I felt a sense of accomplishment I'd never experienced before. But as our business flourished, I noticed subtle changes in Catherine. She seemed more withdrawn, spending long hours at the office and coming home exhausted. At first, I chalked it up to the stress of our expanding business, but as weeks turned into months, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. One evening, as we were closing up the shop, I decided to broach the subject. "Catherine," I said, my voice soft, "is everything okay? You've seemed distant lately." She paused, her back to me, as she arranged bottles on a shelf. When she turned, her blue eyes were filled with a sadness I'd never seen before. "Madison," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "there's something I need to tell you." My heart raced as she led me to the small office in the back of the store. We sat on the same couch where we'd first made love, the memory now tainted by the heaviness in the air. "I've been struggling," Catherine said, her hands twisting in her lap, "with my transition, with my identity, with everything." I reached out to take her hand, but she pulled away. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep the panic from my voice. She took a deep breath. "I thought I had it all figured out, but lately I've been questioning everything, my gender identity, my sexuality, even us." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Us?" I repeated, my voice small. Catherine's eyes filled with tears. "I love you, Madison. I do. But I don't know if I can be who you need me to be. Who I thought I was." We talked for hours that night, tears flowing freely between us. Catherine explained how she'd been feeling increasingly dysphoric, how our success had paradoxically made her question herself more. She spoke of sleepless nights and moments of panic, of feeling like an imposter in her own skin. As the sun began to rise, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, we came to a heart-wrenching decision. Catherine needed time and space to figure things out, and as much as it killed me, I knew I had to give it to her. The next few weeks were the hardest of my life. Catherine moved out, taking a leave of absence from our business. I threw myself into work, trying to fill the gaping hole her absence left in my life. Our friends rallied around us, but even their support couldn't ease the ache in my chest. One rainy afternoon, as I was closing up the shop, the bell over the door chimed. I looked up to see Catherine standing there, soaked from the rain, her eyes red-rimmed but clear. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi," I replied, my heart in my throat. We stood there for a moment, the air heavy with unspoken words. Finally, Catherine spoke. "I've made a decision," she said, her voice steady. "I need to complete my transition journey, and I need to do it on my own." I nodded, tears blurring my vision. Deep down, I'd known this was coming, but it didn't make it any easier to hear. "I'll always love you, Madison," Catherine continued, her own tears falling freely now. "But I can't be your partner right now. It's not fair to either of us." We spent the next hour talking, crying, and holding each other. We discussed the future of our business, deciding to keep it running but with more defined roles. Catherine would focus on the creative side, while I handled the day-to-day operations. It wasn't ideal, but it was the best we could do under the circumstances. As Catherine prepared to leave, she paused at the door. "You know," she said, turning back to me, "I don't regret a single moment of our time together. You helped me find my true self, even if it's not the self we thought it was." I managed a watery smile. "I don't regret it either. You taught me how to love without fear." We shared one last bittersweet kiss before Catherine walked out the door and out of my life as my partner. The following months were a blur of grief, anger, and eventually acceptance. Our business continued to thrive, a testament to the foundation we'd built together. Catherine and I maintained a professional relationship, and over time, a fragile friendship began to emerge from the ashes of our romance. 1 year to the day after our breakup, I found myself back in the community center, attending a support group meeting. As I shared my story of love found, lost, and transformed, I realized something profound. Our journey hadn't been a failure. It had been a beautiful, necessary chapter in both our lives. As I walked home that night, the stars twinkling above Reno's neon-lit streets, I caught a whiff of a familiar scent. It was the perfume Catherine and I had created together, worn by a passerby. I closed my eyes, letting the memories wash over me. When I opened them again, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in months. Our love story hadn't ended the way we'd hoped, but it had changed us both for the better. And isn't that, in the end, what true love is supposed to do? I unlocked the door to my apartment, breathing in the scent of home. On my dresser sat a small bottle, our first fragrance together. I picked it up, smiling at the memories it held. Then, with a deep breath, I opened the window and poured it out, watching as the wind carried away the last droplets. It was time for a new chapter, a new scent, and this time, I would craft it on my own, carrying with me all the lessons of love, loss, and self-discovery that Catherine had taught me. As I crawled into bed that night, I felt a glimmer of excitement for the future. It wasn't the future I'd once dreamed of, but it was mine. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough.